What should have been some of the happiest moments in people's lives instead turned into heartbreaking tragedies. Marriage proposals are meant to be filled with love, excitement, and the promise of a future together, but in some rare and shocking cases, they've ended in disaster. From dangerous stunts gone horribly wrong to poorly planned surprises that spiraled out of control, these stories serve as grim reminders that even the most romantic gestures can carry serious risks. Here are 5 of the dumbest and most tragic proposal deaths ever recorded. It was supposed to be a moment pulled straight from a romance film. Instead, it ended like the opening scene of a true crime documentary. The Manta Resort off Pemba Island, Tanzania, is marketed as paradise turquoise water, private floating villas, and a famous underwater bedroom surrounded by glass walls where fish drift past like silent witnesses. Couples travel from across the world to experience it. In September 2019, Steven Weber and his girlfriend arrived there chasing exactly that fantasy, a memory they could tell for the rest of their lives. No one imagined it would become the story of his death. Weber had prepared something elaborate, not a simple kneel-on-the-beach proposal, but a cinematic gesture designed for that one breathtaking reaction. He wrote his proposal on a handwritten note, sealed it inside a plastic sleeve so the ink wouldn't bleed. He packed goggles and flippers. He chose the underwater room, a glass cube submerged several meters beneath the Indian Ocean, as his stage. From the inside, his girlfriend would be able to watch him through the thick window as he floated outside like a character in an aquarium dream. He would press the note to the glass. Then he would reveal the ring. It was beautiful. It was also dangerously naive. The entire scene was recorded on her phone. In the video, Weber swims into view, kicking slowly in the blue haze. He holds up the laminated paper to the window. The message is simple and nervous, the kind of words a man writes when he can't trust his voice. I can't hold my breath long enough to tell you everything I love about you. Will you please be my wife? Then he reaches into his pocket and pulls out the ring. For a few seconds, it looks like the perfect viral love story. Sunlight flickers through the water. Fish circle lazily around him. Inside the room, his girlfriend laughs in disbelief, filming the man she expects to spend her life with. But something is already wrong. His movements seem rushed. His breathing tube is absent. He is relying only on the air in his lungs. The underwater current nudges him slightly away from the window. He kicks again, harder this time, and then the camera keeps rolling as he drifts out of frame. He never returns. Resort staff later confirmed the devastating truth. Steven Weber drowned before he could reach the surface, but the details remain disturbingly thin. Why attempt such a stunt without proper breathing equipment? Why wasn't there a guide or safety diver present? Did he misjudge the depth, the pressure, the distance back to air? Some reports say the room sat around 4 meters underwater, shallow for trained divers, but lethal for someone holding their breath in emotional excitement. Adrenaline burns oxygen faster. Panic steals it even quicker. There is also the eerie fact that his final act was not survival. It was performance. He stayed long enough to finish the proposal, to show the ring, to complete the scene he had imagined in his head. By the time instinct took over, it may already have been too late. His girlfriend posted the video later, calling it the cruelest twist of fate. The internet watched a proposal transform into a man's last recorded breaths. What haunts the footage is not just the death, but the innocence of the idea behind it. The belief that love needs a spectacle, that a private promise must become an extreme act to feel real. In the end, the ocean didn't care about the romance. Water filled his lungs the same way it has for centuries. No villain, no conspiracy, just a dream colliding with physics, and a question written on a piece of paper that would never receive its answer. In the quiet streets of Bhainsa town in India's Telangana state, an ordinary afternoon in July turned into a grim murder that shocked an entire community. What should have been a normal day in a close-knit neighborhood instead became a scene of horror, one that residents would remember for years to come. The victim was just 18 years old, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. For nearly 2 years, a local youth named Mahesh had been pursuing her, telling others he was in love and wanted to marry her. According to police, the two lived in the same area and were familiar with one another, which made the situation even more unsettling for neighbors who had seen their interactions over time. But the girl's family had advised her against the relationship, and she ultimately rejected his proposal. That rejection appears to have triggered the tragedy. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, the girl stood outside her home, going about her routine. At around 2:30 p.m., Mahesh approached her. Instead of accepting her decision or walking away, he allegedly confronted her with a knife. Police later said he attacked her in front of her own house and slit her throat in full public view. She died on the spot before anyone could intervene. Witnesses described the attack as sudden and shocking. There was little warning, and by the time neighbors realized what was happening, it was already too late. The violence lasted only moments, but its impact was devastating not just for the victim's family, but for the entire community that had watched her grow up. Investigators later revealed that the girl's family had already arranged her marriage to another man, and she was expected to be married soon. This development may have intensified Mahesh's frustration, as police said he had been pressuring her to accept his proposal for months. After the attack, Mahesh fled the scene, but police moved quickly. A murder case was registered at Bainsa police station, and the accused was taken into custody shortly afterward. Authorities confirmed that the motive was directly linked to the rejected proposal and his obsession with marrying her. In some reports, it was also revealed that the victim had previously complained about his harassment, suggesting that the violence did not come completely out of nowhere, but was the culmination of months of unwanted attention and pressure. Unlike accidental deaths caused by risky stunts or misguided romantic gestures, this case represents something darker, a crime driven by entitlement and the refusal to accept rejection. It highlights a recurring pattern seen in similar cases across the region, where the word no is treated not as a decision, but as an insult to be avenged. For the victim's family, the loss was immeasurable. One moment, they were preparing for her future. The next, they were planning her funeral. For the town of Bainsa, the incident became a painful reminder of how quickly obsession can turn into violence when respect and consent are ignored. In official records, the case would be reduced to a few lines. An 18-year-old girl killed after rejecting a marriage proposal, accused arrested, investigation ongoing. But behind those brief summaries lies a shattered family, a life cut short, and a community left grappling with the chilling consequences of rejection, taken as rage rather than a simple human choice. At first glance, it looked like a tragedy. A motorcycle twisted on the asphalt, police vehicles blocking the road, a young man lying motionless beside his helmet while bystanders whispered the same frightened question. Is he dead? On September 30th in the Philippines, commuters slowed their cars, convinced they were witnessing another senseless road fatality. What they didn't know was that the entire scene had been choreographed. Not for an investigation, but for a marriage proposal. And that is where the story turns uncomfortable. The man at the center of it all was Jeffrey Del Rio. According to witnesses, he had planned everything with military precision. Friends played the roles of emergency responders. Someone posed as a police officer to divert traffic. The motorcycle was laid on its side like a wounded animal. Jeffrey himself practiced how still a body should look. His girlfriend arrived, believing she was about to identify the man she loved. Video taken by onlookers shows her rushing toward the scene, hands over her mouth, eyes wide with panic. For several agonizing seconds, she believed she was living the worst day of her life. Then the corpse moved. Jeffrey suddenly came back to life, pulled out a ring, and asked her to marry him. Applause replaced sirens. Fear was expected to transform into joy. The crowd cheered as if they had just watched a romantic comedy climax instead of emotional torture. But not everyone was clapping. What happens inside a person during those seconds when they believe their partner is dead? Psychologists later criticized the stunt as emotional manipulation dressed up as romance. Trauma, they warned, does not disappear simply because the victim is told it was a joke. The brain records terror before it records relief. There were other dangers too. Dangers Jeffrey seemed not to consider. Cars braking suddenly on a busy road. Untrained actors pretending to be authorities. The possibility that a real ambulance might ignore an actual emergency because people assumed it was another prank. One wrong move, one startled driver, and the fake tragedy could have become very real. Jeffrey defended the idea, saying he wanted a proposal she would never forget. He was right about that. What he misunderstood was the difference between unforgettable and unforgivable. Love built on deception walks a fragile line. For some viewers, the moment looked sweet. For others, it felt like watching a hostage forced to smile. Local officials later condemned the act, reminding the public that impersonating police and staging accidents is illegal and dangerous. But by then, the video had already gone viral, inspiring copycats and sparking debates across social media. How far is too far for a perfect moment? When does creativity become cruelty? No one died that day in the Philippines, but death was invited to the rehearsal. The scene contained all the ingredients of a real disaster: speeding traffic, emotional shock, public confusion. It survived on luck alone. And luck is not a safety plan. Jeffrey's proposal ended with a yes. It could just as easily have ended with a siren that wasn't part of the script. In the age of viral love, the most dangerous weapon isn't a knife or a cliff or deep water. Sometimes it's an idea that sounds romantic in someone's head.
In a shocking incident of a broad daylight murder in a posh area of South Delhi, a man battered his cousin to death with an iron rod because she had refused to marry him and he was finding it difficult to get anyone else to agree either.
History likes to describe marriage as a union of love. Police files tell a different story. Across decades and continents, the simple act of asking for a hand in marriage has sometimes carried an unspoken threat. In places where honor outweighs choice, a proposal is not always a question. It is a negotiation of power, and when that negotiation fails, the result can be fatal. These are not reckless stunts or accidents of bad planning. These are killings rooted in pride, ownership, and the dangerous belief that a woman's answer is not hers to give. Investigators from South Asia to the Middle East describe eerily similar case files. A family refuses a proposal. The rejected suitor feels humiliated. Rumors spread about dishonor. Violence follows. Sometimes the victim is the woman who said no. Sometimes it is a rival suitor, a brother who defended her, or even the man who dared to ask without permission. What links these deaths is not romance, but entitlement. Criminologists studying these cases note that the word proposal is misleading. In many communities, it functions less like a request and more like a claim. To reject it is to challenge a man's status in front of relatives and neighbors and challenge some answer with knives, acid, or bullets. In India, newspapers regularly report young women murdered after refusing marriage offers, their deaths later described as crimes of passion. In Pakistan, families have been attacked for daring to choose their own sons-in-law. In parts of the Middle East, so-called honor killings have been justified with the same chilling logic. She brought shame by saying no. Each culture uses different language, but the motive sounds the same. A proposal becomes a trigger. Rejection becomes rebellion. Rebellion is punished. What makes these cases especially disturbing is how predictable they are. Neighbors often admit they saw warning signs of stalking, threats, obsessive visits, yet no one intervened. The proposal stage is treated as private business until it suddenly becomes a homicide scene. Documentary researchers who interview survivors hear the same sentence again and again. He said, "If I couldn't be his, I wouldn't be anyone's." That phrase appears in testimonies from Delhi, Lahore, Dhaka, and dozens of smaller towns whose names never reach international headlines. To label these deaths as isolated madness is convenient. It avoids the larger question: why does a romantic ritual carry the shadow of violence at all? The answer lies in the way proposals are framed, not as mutual choices, but as transactions involving family honor, social reputation, and male authority. When those pillars are threatened, some men reach for control by the oldest method known. These tragedies remind us that the most dangerous proposals are not the ones performed on cliffs or under oceans. The deadliest are the ordinary ones, spoken in living rooms and marketplaces, where a single word can ignite generations of expectation. The victims of proposal-related violence rarely become symbols. They remain daughters, students, shopkeepers, names that fade after the trial ends. Yet their stories trace a hidden map of how love, when stripped of consent, mutates into something lethal. Every file asks the same uncomfortable question. If a proposal can lead to murder, was it ever really a proposal at all? The mountain was supposed to be their witness. Falkert, a quiet peak in the Austrian Alps, is the kind of place lovers choose for photographs. Endless snowfields, clean cold air, the world spread beneath their feet like a promise. For one couple, it was meant to be the backdrop of a perfect beginning. Instead, it became the edge of a nightmare. The couple had hiked up the slopes of Carinthia on a winter day, surrounded by white silence. The boyfriend had planned it carefully. A ring hidden in his pocket, a view dramatic enough to match his courage. At the summit, he knelt, asked the question people rehearse their whole lives, and she answered the way he hoped. She said yes. For a few seconds, the scene looked like every romantic fantasy. Laughter in the thin mountain air. Two people imagining a future together. What they didn't notice was how fragile the ground beneath them had become. Snow and ice had glazed the rock face. One careless step was all it took. Moments after accepting the proposal, the woman lost her footing. Witnesses later described seeing her slide toward the cliff edge, arms flailing, as if the mountain itself had decided to take back the happiness it had just allowed. Then she disappeared, tumbling nearly 650 feet down the slope, a distance longer than most skyscrapers are tall. Her fiancé tried to reach her. In the panic, he slipped as well, falling about 50 feet before managing to grab a small ledge that stopped him from following her into the abyss. From celebration to catastrophe, in less than a heartbeat. Rescue teams were called immediately. Mountain specialists climbed through freezing conditions expecting the worst. Falls from that height usually end in silence, not second chances, but the Alps offered a cruel miracle. Heavy snowdrifts cushioned her descent, slowing her body enough to keep her alive. When rescuers finally reached her, she was injured but conscious, bruised, terrified, yet breathing. Her fiancé was airlifted with a fractured vertebra, proof of how close both of them had come to dying on what was meant to be the happiest day of their relationship. Emergency officials later admitted they were stunned. Statistically, she should not have survived. Investigators treated the incident as an accident, but the story sparked uncomfortable debate. Why choose such a dangerous location for a life-changing moment? How often do couples confuse beauty with safety? And how many proposals depend more on luck than planning? Romance had blinded them to risk, icy ground that offered no grip, steep cliffs with no barriers. Emotional distraction at the very moment balance mattered most. The proposal was meant to prove devotion. Instead, it revealed how easily love can push people beyond reason. The couple eventually recovered, carrying not only a ring, but the memory of how close they came to being another headline. What should have been a story told to grandchildren will always include a darker chapter: helicopters, stretchers, and the long fall between yes and survival. Their engagement photos will never show the snow that saved her life. This incident stands as one of the clearest real examples of how proposal stunts can flirt with death without intending to. No pranks, no fake crashes, just an ordinary couple chasing an extraordinary moment and nearly paying for it with everything. Love asked a question on that mountain. Gravity answered first.